Hey everybody, Traceman Styles here, finally getting around to putting some things up on my YouTube channel. I've been talking about this with people for the longest time, people asking when are you going to get some stuff up there, and I promised I would, and so this is the start of that. So what I wanted to do was when my album first came out, The Traceman Cometh, when that first came out in May of 2021, which has been, a year and a half now, I started getting a lot of questions. People would listen to the album, and uh, friends and strangers alike would shoot me questions and just about the album and about different kind of things. And I started getting a lot of the same questions. So I finally just said, well, I'll just do like a question and answer kind of thing where I answer some questions. So I figured if several people are asking, there's maybe several more that are wondering. So I'm going to do some question and answer things here. So one of the questions that I got quite a bit was, where did Traceman come from? The name Traceman, and what kind of a nickname is that? Well, that goes back to when I first got out of high school. I started working in a factory in my hometown of Eaton Rapids, and it was a sweatshop, metal punch press, die, making parts and that kind of stuff there. Sweaty, hot, heavy work. And there was a guy there named Todd Kennedy who I went to school with. He was a couple years older than me. And every time I walked into the shop, he would bust out with that Bob Seger song Catmandu, only he would say, I think I'm going to Traceman. Every single time I came in, I got greeted by that. And then everyone else started doing it. And then they went from Tracemandu down to just Traceman. So I've been Traceman ever since. There's people who I know who have never even called me Tracy. It's always Traceman. So there was that one. Other questions that I was getting a lot. How long have you been playing guitar? I started playing guitar in 1977, the summer of 1977, which I always say was a really big summer for me because A, I started playing guitar, B, Star Wars, the first Star Wars movie came out, that was huge, and I smoked my first joint, so hey, big summer. So I started playing in 77, you do the math there, 40 plus years. What was your first guitar? My first guitar was a real piece of crap. It was called a Teisco Delray, and it was kind of stratty looking, kind of, sort of, and it wasn't good. It was really cheap. I have no idea what it cost new. I bought it used from a friend of my brother's who took a stab and then bailed quickly, and he sold me this guitar and an amp. It was a Gibson amp, which sounds kind of cool, but it's really not. It was a piece of crap. And then a microphone and a mic stand, but the mic stand was a lamp that was kind of converted into a mic stand, and so it wasn't grounded because whenever I tried to actually sing into it, if the mic touched my lips, I got electrocuted. So didn't use the mic too much, but I played that for a couple years until my parents saw that I was serious about it, and I went in on another guitar with my parents for my 16th birthday, and I got a Hondo 2 Les Paul copy, which I played for quite a while. But that was my early stuff there. Who are your big influences, and how did they impact you? I would have to say that there was several guitar players that I listened to and got my attention before I ever started playing guitar, and that'd be the likes of Eric Clapton from Cream and Jimmy Page. And Richie Blackmore. I listened to my brother-in-law Mark had this amazing album collection. When we first moved to Michigan, I got to listen to those albums all the time, and he had this gigantic collection of just great guitar music. So that had a big impact on me. And then later, I started kind of I was always listening to music, and the guitar always kind of jumped out at me. So later, I remember hearing Queen. Their first album came out in 1973, and that just Brian May just blowing my mind. And Rush came out in '74 on their first album, and that was another big one there. But the ones that really started making a big impact on me, I started playing in '77, and the players out at that time. Tom Schultz of Boston was just absolutely huge to me, absolutely huge. And Tom, to this day, people say, hey, you kind of sound like Boston there. And I'm not really trying to. I do a lot of harmony leads like what Schultz did. And so I loved I loved the songs. I loved his tone. I loved his sound. And his riffs were absolutely amazing. and he played with such passion, it was ridiculous. And it's like he would play a song, and I could swear I know what he's thinking. And if you've never heard the solo in "A Man Will Never Be" from "Don't Look Back," you have to. That's just an absolute great solo. But Tom was huge to me. Um, Neil Schon for Journey. While their first really big album came out in '78, that's the first album with Steve Perry, and that's when they kind of started to become a household name. But that was a big one, and I loved his riffs, and the songs were just absolutely great. And I thought Neil played so well, and I just really was drawn to him. In '79, when the next album came out, Evolution, you could kind of hear his sound evolving, hear his playing evolving, and that was really fun to kind of listen to the evolution of Neil Schon. By the time 1980 came around and Departure came out, it was just mind blowing. His sound was just absolutely so different, so big, so full, very distorted, and but not too distorted. It wasn't mud. It was just a very good, rich, deep, full sound. And his riffs were just off the charts. He would just do those really fast riffs. He could play so incredibly fast, but didn't rely on it. You know what I mean? So Neil was huge, and Gary Richrath of REO Speedwagon, he was probably one of my first ones there. I started playing in 1977, and that's when REO's live album came out. And that is a great album. You want to hear some great guitar music, listen to REO's live album. You get what you play for from 1977. Gary was just off the charts good. He just had mind-blowing riffs, and he just played so well and fit that band so well, and used a wah pedal like just so good. So those guys were just all really huge to me. I would have to say my biggest, of course, is Alex Lifeson of Rush. I mean, when I play, when I'm writing my own stuff, I do a lot of arpeggios, and that's largely because Alex did, and I listened to it so much, and I loved it so much, and I played it, and I studied it, and I analyzed it, and I dissected it, and that just kind of became part of my own style. And but whether it's acoustic, whether it's classical, whether it's electric, he's just got such uh, an amazing understanding of the instrument. And going from 1974 to 1976, they kick out 4 albums, and then the live album, that first live album, All the World's a Stage, was just absolutely incredible. And that was the album that I really kind of cut my Rush teeth on there. So those guys were just huge. Alex is probably my biggest influence. Of course, Eddie Van Halen came out in 1978. He kind of changed things pretty drastically, kind of turned everything upside down. So I've been playing for about a year when Eddie came out and says, no, you do it like this, not that. So he turned everything upside down, and that kind of blew my mind. Apart from that, Ritchie Blackmore, Deep Purple, I liked Purple, but I loved Rainbow. And, I really dug that. Michael Schenker, dear God, love that guy. I mean, my guitar heroes, and they're continuing. It's like in the 80s I'm not really crazy about 80s music. I don't like hair bands, but I like a lot of the 80s guitar players. And, late 80s is when Satriani came out, and that guy was huge to me. In the 80s when I really kind of got familiar with Steve Morse, another big one there. But I could literally talk all day about guitar, the guys that were influential and impacted me. What kind of gear are you using? That's kind of a tough one because if you've heard my album and you're listening to my album and wondering, hey, what kind of equipment are you using? Well, in the studio, I primarily used back then I had a Guild 12 string that I used for any acoustic work, and I have an Ibanez SA220EX. I have 2 of them now, but at the time I had the one, and I absolutely love that guitar. It is an extension of me. I cannot imagine my life without that guitar, and I used that in the studio. I ran it through a Behringer rack mount and got a good sound that I really liked, and then we just went direct out into the board. So I really wasn't using amps in the studio, and it kind of worked because I really liked the sound. Now, if you've ever caught me playing live, a lot of times I'm using this Hughes Kettner right here. This Hughes Kettner. It's a 100-watt Hughes Kettner switchblade. Get a great sound out of that. I can get just some fierce saturated distortion that I absolutely love. Uh, uh, I get some nice chorus and some delay, which are kind of the staples for me. And that's kind of it. I got more guitars, obviously, and I got three butlers, one, two, three butlers, the Hughes Kettner, and I got a Line 6, so got a handful of guitars. Uh, do you play any other instruments? Well, I do. In my lifetime, I've taken obviously guitar lessons, piano lessons, violin lessons, and voice lessons. But I grew up with a piano in the house. My mom played piano. My mom played piano and guitar. Both of my older sisters took piano lessons. My oldest sister Carla is actually pretty good still. You know, she'll play Wagner's Spinning Wheel on demand, and she can still pull it off quite well there. So, but I've always had piano, and so I've always messed around with it. Had my sisters show me stuff on it, and just dinged around with it a lot there. But I did finally take piano lessons, guitar lessons, and violin lessons there. So. Um, uh, Piano, I can kind of get my way around it. Any kind of keyboards that you hear on my album was me. So, let's see. When did you first start recording? Let's see. Well, I would have to say probably mid '90s when I first started, and I ran into a guy that was just kind of starting to put a studio together, and he was looking for a guinea pig to kind of hone in his skills and that kind of stuff. So he was like, "Hey, you got any material you want recorded?" I'm like, "Yeah." So I would go there and started recording there and kind of putting stuff together. Have my friends come in and put some stuff on there. I did uh, uh, my old studio partner and I did we did a little compilation, kind of it was just a combo effort there where we put out a demo, and it was for sale on CD Baby, the Zoe project. So if you look that up, you'll hear some early Traceman from 28 years ago. But once we had the studio going, once the same guy, we started playing a lot, and then he asked me if I wanted to partner up, and so I became the partner in Three Piece Studio and was the in-house producer. So I did a lot of session work for clients, a lot of session work, and then just kind of cut my teeth, made all my mistakes, worked on other people's stuff, so that by the time I was ready to start doing my solo project, I think I was pretty well where I needed to be to get that going there. So yeah, going back, it's been like I think '95. That's when I first started. And okay, let's see. Next question: why did your album take so long to release? Oh God, that's almost painful to even talk about. So again, I recorded this in our studio, and you got to keep in mind that we had paying clients that were coming in to record. So obviously, I took the back seat to them. So I pretty much it seemed like forever. I had this window of 8 a.m. to 12 noon on Saturdays. So every day I would get up early, get my stuff, go to the studio, record for 4 hours, which seems like a long time, but it's really not. Especially when you're just trying to just kind of work things out still, and it was just oh God, it was so time consuming. When I first started, I got together with a friend of mine, Phil Stetler, who I played in a band with back in, I think, the late 80s up until 90s, early 90s, something like that. And Phil and I got together and we put down the basic tracks. I had the guitars, I had the songs written and arranged, knew how I wanted them. Phil and I went into the studio and just kind of got the backbone of the songs recorded, and then from there we can work. I can work from them. We had to get those drums down, and then a guitar dummy track, and then that's all I needed to get going with. Well, we had some issues there where we kind of went to some different software changes and just different systems, and we had some corrupt files. We lost a lot of stuff, and the drum tracks that we had, we really couldn't save them all. It was really broken up, so we had to re-record. And I asked Phil, hey man, you want to come back in and do that? And I know it was a big thing to ask because it took a lot of time and a lot of effort. The first time he said, man, I just can't. So it was cool. I understood. So I got drummer Dave, Dave Forback, who I played in Gray Logic with, though I don't think I was at that time. And Dave came in and put he laid the drum tracks on there. So when you listen to the album, there's 8 songs. 7 of them are drummer Dave, and then Phil. We did manage to salvage one. Phil plays on the title track of the Traceman Cometh. So going back and forth, and then again working 4 hours, a week, was just really really tough to try and get all that in there. Of course, during that time, my dad passed away, and then I had to take the time off for that. Just a lot of life, happened there, and kind of doing something part time that I really want to do well, just made it to be very, very time consuming. But anyways, when it was all said and done, it was it was something I was pretty happy with. It just, man, it took a long time to do it there. Who else played on your album? Well, as I talked about the drummers, Phil Stetler and drummer Dave Forback, they took care of the drums. For bass, I had 2 guys. Bill Kitley, who is a longtime friend. We were in our first band together in high school, so I've known Bill since high school. So a very good friend of mine, and he played on some tracks. He played on stuff like For Dad and Rain Cheer, and I can't remember what all he did. And then we had Jimmy Regan. And Jimmy Regan I played with in Gray Logic. And 2 very different bass players. Like Bill is just Mr. Technique. His technique is so tight. He's kind of playing and you barely see his fingers move, And he's technique, very fast, knows a lot about theory, and just does it well. And then you got Jimmy Regan, who is more like a Geezer Butler or Jack Bruce kind of a bass player, and really able to just kind of hook into the feel and just really kind of put that down. So if you listen to like No One's Shadow or Over and Over, that's Jimmy. So on the more aggressive stuff, Jimmy played, and on the other stuff, Bill did. I did all the guitars and any keyboards. So if you hear a guitar, it's me. If you hear a keyboard or strings, that's me. And then for the vocals, vocals were just quite the chore because I kept over the years trying to get guys to come in. I put down some tracks. I recorded some tracks, and man, my voice just did not work for my songs. So I knew I had to go outside to try and get somebody else to do that. And I got, a couple, and it just didn't work out. I know that John Garrett, a good friend of mine, John Garrett, who I played in a band with, and a good friend, my wife Lisa and I traveled with him and his wife Yo, and he came in and put some. But then once we went to the mixing thing, we found that we had lost some vocals, and we couldn't. They were just nowhere to be found. And there's a story to that as well. When the studio went under, because of my former partner, whose name I do not mention in this. When it was going down, I went and got the master drive, and I said, "This I'm taking," So I had the master drive with all my stuff on it, and so I was able to save it. But we couldn't find the vocals. So again, I wasn't able to get John back in to record those. But luckily, the guy that was resurrecting my album was Ron Gallagher, which is a friend of mine from my hometown of Eaton Rapids, who I've known since I was 17. I met him in 1980, and he's a hometown hero, musician hero of mine, who literally brought my album back from the dead. And he was kind of pushing for me to put vocals on it. But I'm like, dude, no, it's just not going to work there. So Ron did them. Ron did the vocals, and he did a great job. I really like his vocals on my song. So I was really happy with that, and I thought that turned out really, really well. So anyway, so I'm at about 20 minutes here, so I'm going to shut this one down so it doesn't get too long there. I'll kind of put a couple more up until I get through this, but just so that it doesn't take up an entire afternoon to have to listen to this. I'll shut this one down. I'll pick up another one there. But hey, listen, hit the subscribe button, man. There's more stuff coming, and I'm gonna have more stuff up there, and I'm hoping to get some fun guitar stuff up here. So hit subscribe, and that'll keep you up on any kind of new stuff coming up there for the Traceman. Okay? All right. Talk to everyone later.